Auckland. It's wonderful to be here today, and this is a true, authentic story, so no celebrity porn here at all. I work not only for Lifewise, but for Edau Property and Methodist Mission Northern as well. So it's a group of 3 not-for-profit trusts, but Lifewise is the most well-known, and of course the big sleep out people usually recall more than Lifewise for some strange reason. But it's all good. So, as I said, we're 3 independent trusts, but we work interdependently, which is an interesting matrixed organisation to be a part of. Methodist Mission Northern is the theological roots of the organisation, and where the whole organisation sprung from about 10 to 11 years ago. Lifewise split off, and so did Edau Property. Lifewise is known as an innovator in the social services space, and we have offerings which go from early childhood through to elderly and disabled who we help to remain independent in their own homes. And we're most well known for our work with the homeless in Auckland. We brought Housing First, which was an international concept, to New Zealand and localised it, and now it's been rolled out nationally and been partnered with other not-for-profits across the Auckland space as well. We also developed Lifewise in-home parenting support, which is now called Mana Whānau, and this is basically an alternative to foster care, which now Oranga Tamariki is rolling out the concept nationwide as well. Edau Property is one of the largest social enterprises in New Zealand by asset base and turnover giving that it gives to the other organisations. It also became the first organisation in New Zealand to have social housing accreditation from overseas. Who else here works for not-for-profit? There's a few. Put your hands up, really. A few down the back there. Anyone work for a social enterprise? No? Who works for a corporate with a conscience? There's a few. Okay, so there's lots of opportunities to give and connect, not only with us, but there's some not-for-profit friends down the back. This is what we call a symbiotic relationship. We make you look good, and you help keep us funded and keep our programs going. Okay. And these are some of the people who are currently supporting us to keep our programs running. We have a number of obligations and reporting to our different funders and stakeholders. Much like any other organisation, we're accountable for delivering on what we say we are going to deliver on. So these people are incredibly important to us, and delivering our objectives are incredibly important. These people are also our stakeholders. They're the people we work with and the people who work for us, and they are also vital. We wouldn't exist without them. And our financial sustainability, because I know the corporates will be going, where's the bottom line on all of this? Our financial sustainability in a not-for-profit, our surpluses get reinvested back into extended programs and helping more people. So you can see with the staffing growth chart since 2015, we have grown by 50% in the last few years, and the number of staff, which has also been an expansion of our services. So in 2014, our 3 organisations launched our internal strategy based around connected, just and inclusive communities, which was a vital overlapping strategy across the 3 organisations and a unifying vision for the 3 organisations. So that vision actually needed to include us, so that's where the culture journey really came in, and our focus on our internal culture to ensure that we were living our vision internally as well as externally. Okay, this was not our culture in 2014. This is the human synergistics ideal culture, and this was our intention as part of our journey. So the approach that we took was really to start by raising awareness, particularly first with the senior leadership team, and also basically harnessing the energy of everyone in the organisation as part of this journey, because culture Culture involves everyone, and it can be sometimes difficult for people to see what that means, but having that sort of marker of the circumplex as an ideal goal to work towards was really useful. And ensuring that ownership is retained at the different levels in the organisation. I like to put this into my own personal model. This is not an academic model, so that's just a warning for that. What I like to call wake up, the awareness stage, so really becoming aware that there's actually something that needs to happen and need to change. Acceptance of all of it, so the good and the bad, or the good and the challenging, opportunities for growth, I think we call it. And sometimes the higher up in the organisation you are and the more powerful your position, the more challenging some of this feedback can be to take on board. So supporting people through that process to acceptance is really important in order to enable the organisation to move forward. Team up. So teams are really important at the senior executive level as well as the operational team level, and it's through teams that you will achieve the most change in your organisation. So we had a number of different levels in our process around teams. And of course, act. Nothing happens if you don't follow through on what you plan to. So strategy without action is just a dream. It's making that strategy a reality that actually changes things. And review where you are. Celebrate the successes along the way. If it don't work so well, it's a learning opportunity, and you pivot and you move on. And to enjoy as much of the process as possible. Okay, this is where we were in 2015. So we were a little bit away from the human synergistics ideal. We had some work to do. So what we did was we really focused on 4 different areas, and this is sort of a little bit retrospective. Sometimes change is a little bit messier than all of this, but we really focused on teams, communication, learning, and systems. In teams, we had a lot of different team meetings, and we really shared the information that we had about the organisation and the different areas within the organisation with all those in the organisation, basically. We were very transparent about the results. We did a lot of brainstorming at a senior leadership level, at a leadership forum level, and at an operational team level, and kept the brainstorming really quite simple in many ways. It was using traffic lights, stop, start, keep. What is it that we wanted to do in the organisation at different parts of that organisation? And the results and main themes of that were sort of filtered up, and some of them were retained at an operational level. So people retained ownership for acting on the information, and were empowered to actually make a change within their team, as well as to hold those accountable for cross-functional change as well, across the organisation. We also focused on mindset as well as skill set in the recruitment of new staff into the organisation. So having that growth mindset, having constructive behaviours was as important, if not more important, than the skill set that they brought on board. We also dealt with issues as they were presenting themselves. So it was very much about dealing with problematic issues, conduct or performance issues head on. And we delegated decision making to the lowest level possible so that people could get on and do their job. In communications, we were very intentional about focusing on a constructive culture, and our messaging was linked to our vision of connected, just and inclusive communities. So we talked a lot about the community that we were growing within the organisation and across the different trusts of the organisation. We made our language very much strengths-based about what we wanted to see rather than deficit-based. And we used the language and the values of the organisation. We created opportunities for consistent messaging across the organisation via Taki Toru, our internal newsletter, and made sure that we were sharing different information from different parts, as well as success stories and upcoming events that people could be involved in. So we really focused on improving our communication channels, and once again, timely and direct feedback on performance. As far as learning, we ditched the performance appraisal system, which was a very painful process in our organisation. And I'm pleased to say everyone was really excited when that happened. So we went from basically a 12-page retrospective judgmental appraisal system with every best practice known to HR thrown in for good measure, to a very, very simple coaching model, which was setting expectations, ensuring people have the resources to be successful in their job, and then reviewing how they're doing, and doing that on a frequent basis. So ideally at least monthly, more frequently when needed, and less if people are really experienced and doing fine. We did lots of workshops when we rolled out the new performance management system, which was very much around a two-way responsibility and accountability for ensuring that we have successful performance in the organisation, and very much emphasising on giving and receiving feedback. And as part of those workshops, we also focused quite intentionally on the emotional responses to feedback, and really surfaced that this can be something that actually becomes a barrier when it comes to giving and receiving feedback. So we worked through that with both managers and staff as part of our workshops. We also targeted our budget for leadership development at our first line leaders, which I know sometimes might seem a bit different than what people often do, which is sort of like the trickle-down water flow effect. However, we decided that our first line leaders had the most direct reports and usually had the least opportunity for capability development. So we very intentionally targeted our budget in this area. And following their development workshops on leadership, leading self, leading teams, we encouraged them to develop ongoing communities of practice at their peer level. So they had peer support across the different parts of the organisation at their slice in the organisation, which was really effective for their ongoing learning as well as support at a level with peers in the organisation. Before we undertook the culture survey, we had done some 360-degree feedback with our senior leaders using the LSI, which was an opportunity for them to get familiar with the circumflex and constructive and defensive behaviours or less constructive behaviours, and receive some feedback which often people don't get when they get to a senior level, some really honest 360 feedback and some coaching to deal with that. We also had learning measures across the organisation, primarily within Lifewise, but focused on those key performance metrics and helping people to understand what those actually meant for the organisation, as well as our outcomes and the people who depend on us. So really trying to create a true learning organisation. Systems, we simplified our policies and procedures. Wherever possible, we got them onto one double page, which is challenging, I know, in some organisation, but we really tried to use language that was easily accessible, language that resonated with the organisation, and as clear and as simple as possible. We improved our information access using a number of different digital channels. I know this doesn't normally seem what you talk about when you're talking about culture, but it was a real pain point for our organisation. So improving the information that people were able to access at their fingertips, including a new human resources information system, which we were really excited about. So we went from paper-based to actually having a system which actually could be accessed across our now 12 different sites. We published the organisational structure, simple stuff, but we hadn't had it, and it made it more accessible for people to connect with each other across the organisation. We improved our customer record management systems. We rolled out digital devices to our home care workers who work primarily in the field and hardly ever come into the office. So this improved the accessibility channels to the organisation. We can push information out to them easily at their fingertips. And it also means that they can take photos of issues and send them through. They can contact the office so much easier. We don't have the overloaded phone systems, which were a huge pain point. And we overcame the numeracy and the literacy and numeracy issues that we have within a certain amount of this population as well. And that wasn't without some trepidation. We did small groups to roll out these digital devices. There are other people in the industry, in the home care support industry, who were just shaking their heads and thinking it was impossible. But we did it, and it's working incredibly well. We have one story of a woman who was actually absolutely in tears, terrified of having one of these mobile phones. And a few weeks after going through her bite-sized introduction to the course and the support we'd provided, she was so excited, and she could actually use some of the stuff with her grandchildren now as well. So it really improved the accessibility and changed people's perceptions of what they could do and what they could achieve. And out of the 150 workers that we have in this space, there's only one person who is still challenged by the technology. We also increased the use of video across the organisation for storytelling, making it more accessible and less reliant on written language. We turned towards role-based job description, much like Spark, I'm sure talked about earlier. So really simplified, looking at the main purpose for the job and the key responsibilities rather than pages and pages of tasks that you might be expected to do. So this was all about simplifying and making things flexible and accessible for people. And we made improvements in our remuneration systems and market position. So as the organisation has become more and more financially viable, that has flowed on to improving our market position for our staff. Because those, I think, down the back who are familiar with working in the not-for-profit space will realise that this is a huge pain point for our industries as well. So this is our actual results from 2015 to 2018. You will see we had a significant improvement in the constructive styles and a significant decrease in the defensive styles in our organisation. And if you can see the figures on the charts below, the percentile points, we had double-digit percentile point improvement in all of the constructive styles, which is apparently incredibly transformational. Apparently it's normally in single digits. And in our defensive styles, in 5 out of the 8 defensive styles, we also achieved double-digit transformation in the direction you want to go, as well as changes in all of those and decreasing our defensive styles in the organisation. This has flowed on to the outcomes for our organisation in these areas, and a couple of areas I want to specifically point out, which are normally the measures that are included in staff engagement. So satisfaction, which is in the red, has tripled since 2015 for our organisation, and motivation has doubled. So I got really excited when I saw these results come through. Our team lead and first line managers So pretty much in 2015, they felt like they were the meat in the sandwich and were incredibly frustrated. Now they're one of the most constructive, or see the organisation as the most constructive. And the impact on outcomes for this group have been significant. So satisfaction, I need to see this up close now. Satisfaction was pretty much flatlined on the historical average, and it's now one of the top scores on the OEI. So where the red circles are, motivation where the green circle was, is gone up by 4 times, so it's quadrupled. A resilience, or the inverse of stress, has doubled, and role clarity, which was below the line, is now well and truly above the line for this group. Our social work population also significantly improved in the constructive styles, and reduction particularly in the oppositional and the perfectionistic, and that reduction has brought it under the bold circle, which means it's not really having an impact on their operating culture, which is fantastic. And this has had a significant impact on the outcomes for that group as well. So you'll see in the red that satisfaction has doubled. In the green, motivation has gone from being flatlined on the historical average to being one of the top scores possible on the OEI. And role conflict, which was a big issue for this group. And the blue there, and was well and truly below the line, is now above the line. So some really exciting results for us as an organisation. So for me, some of the lessons learned was language is really important, and any sort of change process or cultural improvement. Listen to what people say. They know what's causing them frustrations and aggravation in the organisation. Sort of use the 2 ears, 1 mouth rule, and use them in proportion. Wherever possible, scaffold off strengths that you have within the organisation. People find it far easier to focus on strengths rather than deficits, and it's way more motivating when they can see the possibility of using those strengths in other ways. So that's really important as well. And every organisation has strengths. You wouldn't still be in business if you didn't have some strengths. People really want to co-create the organisation that they belong to and that they belong in, and feel like they are adding value to that organisation. So include them, empower them to make the changes that they need to make in the organisation. And bring in experts when required and when it's useful. When you don't have the in-house capability or capacity, it can be really useful for bringing experts in. Or actually when the message is just actually better coming from an outside expert, if you know what I mean. Sometimes there are those occasions as well. Do what you say you're going to do and tell people what you've done. So hold yourself and others accountable for delivering on what they say they were going to do, and keep that 2-way communication process going so that people are aware that what you have done and that it's all been because of what they told you. You've acted on it. You've done something with that information. Keeps them motivated to actually tell you more. Celebrate progress and have some fun. And it's really important in an organisation like ours, which deals with quite serious issues all of the time, to give people the opportunity to have some fun and some lighter moments to make everything manageable and to connect with their peers and their teammates. Keep the end in mind. It's really helpful to have a visual of where you're heading to, because sometimes, with change and culture, it can feel like you're sort of not sure if you're on the right path half the time, and you might need to tack a few times, like with sailing. But if you keep the end in sight, you can navigate towards your destination. And focus on improvement, not perfection. Okay, every nudge, every move in the right direction is better than where you were before. So it doesn't have to be an overwhelming task. It's just be slightly better today than what you were yesterday, and keep that momentum going in the right direction. So we're still on the journey. From 2015 to 2018, we've had a phenomenal step forward, phenomenal leap forward, but we're still aiming for that ideal. And but after seeing Sean's presentation this morning, I'm feeling pretty good about where we are at the moment. But we still want to head to that ideal. So that's it from me. Just before I leave, obviously we're a not-for-profit organisation, so no donation too big or too small. Please feel free to connect with us, to go on the big sleep out, to donate, or to give me a call if you have questions or you would like some support or advice about what we've done. Thank you.